Now, wait a damn minute. Hold on. Let me get my chain. Hang on. I just woke up and watched this, and I'm just like, wow, I got a lot of thoughts. Hold on. It's out of here. Into the studio we go. You already know, for show, bro. Let's go. Throw it on the flow. Show and the talent in myself. That's for show. I don't know. But we gotta, no, you, and there. Okay. I totally forgot I had these in here. Oh, that's cool. Okay, so we've got something really interesting here. It's an episode review. Hang on. Okay. What the fuck, dude? Oh, all right. Okay. Anybody who's seen this, it's probably feel the same way I'm feeling right now. But yeah, anyways, I got the new shirt. It's probably my favorite shirt, man. I love the graffiti design on it. You can already tell with the tapestries and stuff around the studio. But what's going on, guys? It's your boy Kimbo here, and it's time for an epic Bakugan Evolutions episode review. So this is an interesting case. I definitely see this. Like anybody who knows, like just it's so hard to explain, man. So with this, we have kind of episodes 9 and 10 with this. So I'm doing it as one because it's all one. Except 9 and 10, I'm calling them 9 and 10 because they put them out after the other episodes. But this is how the season actually starts off. So yeah, you know how evolutions in general, we were all confused about just how the hell this season's starting. Like they're jumping into everything right away. Well, they had the events that tied things over and such. But they waited till now to put out this episode. So it's technically episode 9 and 10, but it's 1 and 2. You know, I'm still going to call it 9 and 10 because they released it later, but it's like episodes 1 and 2 because they explain things from the past, how it led into like Pegatrix and the other Bakugan returning, you know, and all the events and stuff, and then the Bakugan Academy, everything for that, you know? Except they just waited till now to put them out. So I'm going to call this episode 9 and 10, 1 and 2, something, you know, but just I'm thinking about making a playlist of all these episode reviews and such. I might put this first. I don't know because this is what the sequence of happening like happens first. It's like how it happened with my skits because I had like Beyblade skits and some events happened way before I actually made the whole storyline and I had them tie in. And then we went back to the like kind of that thing. Well, you'll know what I mean when I get into this. So yeah, we got episodes 9 and 10 here, kinda, but it's episodes 1 and 2. So, we're going to get into this. This is why this is confusing. Like I said, this is how it fully starts off. So, the beginning part, the events before they went to Bakugan Academy, this tells about it. But we're getting it now. And I understand, honestly, why they did this. But I'll explain why I understand it at the very end. So, yeah. But, getting into it. Episodes 9 and 10, aka 1 and 2. But we start off just the backstory with Dan and the Awesome Brothers. It's Dan talking about how they've had tons and tons of battles. Like, they showed the Great Collision. They showed how, like, things got crazy with the world countless times. So they showed what happened, like the battle with Drago and Tico, the final battle of the first season. They showed that off. The final battle of the second season, where it was Havoc and Sabra Pyravian taking on Infinity Drago. They showed that off. And then they showed off what happened with Villock and the ultimate, like, Villock combiner, like Maximus Villock, or, ultimate Villock, Maximus Helios, Drago, you know what I mean, same concept. But Ultimate Villock versus Geoforge Drago. They showed all those events off, telling how these things happened countless different times. And it's the clear transition because the end of season 2, we saw the other Bakugan returning in the gate, right? After everything happened on Vestroya and such, and then Sharktar and the others went to their own elemental worlds and acted like the guardians of those worlds. We're getting the transition with that, like some of the events and such with it. Why they waited to put this out? It might be confusing to a lot of people, but I understand why. Like I said, I'll get into it at the end, why. And I'm going to get through this as fast as I can, because the entire thing's 45 minutes. This is literally like they combine them together, like how they do the whole beginning of the season, 2 episodes combined together type thing. But they really combine them together. Like there's no jump cut scene or like intro graphic or such when they split the episodes. Like it's just a whole 45-minute sequence. that goes straight 45 minutes. It's how his season was supposed to start. And yeah, like I said, I understand why they held off. But now getting into the rest of things. So we get the story. So Dan and the others are sitting there at Studio D, you know, and this is the point where none of their Bakugan are around. You know, like I think Drago was like the only one there, but the other Bakugan weren't there. Like nobody else had their Bakugan and such. You know, because they were all hibernating, and then of course Sharktar and the others being the, you know, the gatekeepers of each realm, like Darkavia, Pyrule, etc., etc. You know, so Drago was the one that was with them. You know, just starting off the plot. Well, while they're sitting there in Studio D, Leah's mom's on TV, you know, because she's a reporter, and says how there's this phenomenon happening. Basically, some vines growing and such, and then there's this gigantic ripple of energy that shows up out of somewhere. But they see it as soon as they get there, because you know the awesome brawlers jump to action, go to the scene, see what the hell's going on, and it's like the elemental energy. Like before, like, you know, just a big buildup with it. And considering how much they threw at us with this clip, I understand why they waited until, like I said, I'm gonna be saying this a lot, because going through all the events, you'll understand why. And it might make more sense to other people why they held off on actually putting this out until now. So they released it for like episode 9 and 10 instead of like the original, like, because maybe they felt like they were gonna spoil too much, and I'll understand why. Well, I'll explain why, and I understand why. But anyways, the brawlers are at this scene, but then, you know, none of them have their Bakugan. Drago's the only one that's there, and then you have the elemental brawlers show up. So it's this group, they're like, we're the elemental brawlers. And with this, they showed off the teachers and such. So the Sykes teacher having Griswing, you know, the meditation teacher having Dragonoid, you know, showing them all off. So they're the elemental brawlers. Like Faustus is a part of it, the teachers are a part of it, Athena's a part of it as well. But those are the main ones, you know, that are like right out of the jump. They're the main ones that were the elemental brawlers, the first ones. And it's all the teachers that end up being the teachers at the academy. But they send out their Bakugan to take care of this Bakugan because like a Ryarazu shows up, you know, and this Ryarazu's it's contaminated with the power of, you know, the elemental storm. Like break it through, and they know what the elemental storm is because, you know, the elemental brawlers know that. But then Athena's sitting there like trashing Dan at the beginning because, you know, that's how it started with them. Like, oh, we don't need like a celebrity Bakugan to show up here, and then Dan and Drago are like, don't underestimate our power. But yeah, dude, it's wild seeing how all this started. So they're all sitting there facing this Bakugan, and they managed to take out this Bakugan. They managed to stop it, you know. Dan and Drago tried to fight too, but then it was, of course, a struggle. Like, Dan and Drago were like, what is this energy coming from? You know? But they send out all their Bakugan. And plus, one of the teachers, he's the one with the afro, like with the gray hair. I forgot his name. I forget the names right off the bat, but it's the first time they said his name. Then also the teacher where they were going on, like, where they went to Vestroya on the field trip, the one with the blue and the hat. They showed his Bakugan. He actually has an Aquas Jetra. He has a Jetra, so that's cool. Aquas Jetra. That's how I put Aquas, like, Jetra in there. I don't think we actually got Jetra and Aquas. I don't think they released it in Aquas. So hopefully they're doing the whole melting pot thing where they put out some of these Bakugan and other factions that they didn't release before. I'm really hoping they stick with that. But anyways, they're sitting there and battling, and you know, the professor with the gold, well, you know, with the gray and a little bit of the yellow in his hair. I didn't pay attention to that at the beginning. But he has an R-less Bakugan. He's the R-less teacher. I didn't realize it, but he's the R-less teacher. Because all the other teachers, they're such we've seen. And, you know, we didn't even see the gym teacher with this. This is before we saw the gym teacher, before we saw, you know, the big-time, like, maintenance guy around camp. Because it's before they went to the campus. But, yeah, the teacher with, like, the gray afro and the gold has his own Bakugan. We don't know the name of it. It's definitely a Bakugan they have not said the name for or such at all. And it makes sense why they waited. Because, you know, one, that alone. Because as soon as I saw that, I'm like, what the hell is that Bakugan? They never mentioned that Bakugan. They haven't said anything about it. They haven't shown it since this. So it makes sense why they held off on it. Because they didn't want to spoil everything. Because there's probably, like, you know, that Bakugan, Wrath, another Bakugan as well that you haven't seen before. But getting into it, man, just going through this. after everything gets calmed down, they say that the elemental brawlers, then they just basically up and leave, and then the elemental brawlers are like, "What?" And Dan's like, "We don't need their help, etc., etc." So Dan being stubborn, just like how he's been stubborn at the academy, it shows like the build up even before, because like the second they met them, Dan was being stubborn, like, "Oh, we don't need their help, blah blah blah, etc., etc." And then they went back to Studio D. I was sitting there and just talking about it and just just thinking about like what happened and such. Well, Winton, being the mad genius that he is, tried to figure out like where exactly the elemental energy was coming from since it showed up there randomly. And then Winton's like, this can't be right. If it's saying this correctly, then it would be, and then it starts rumbling, boom, giant elemental energy all around Studio D. Then he's like, it would be right here. And then there's a bunch of Pyrus energy coming out. So, like this shows the whole transition, man. Then we get Drago and Dan running outside. They barely get through the storm. Dan almost gets hurt with it. But then Drago decides to try and absorb all the energy that there is out there. So we get how Drago evolved, because at the beginning he had his Geogana Rising form. When they sent it out, like the ball form, it was a Geogana Rising Drago Ultra. That's what Drago had, as his actual form. But then, when this whole entire elemental storm broke out and then he absorbed all that power, that's how Drago changed. So he had a F ton of elemental energy in his being, and he just vanished. He vanished. And Dan was like, this can't be happening. Like, he thought Drago was done, that he couldn't take the energy or anything. But then Drago shows up literally a minute later. Well, first of all, the other Bakugan, like we saw the end of Armored Alliance, how all the Bakugan were showing up and such through the gate. This is them showing the sequence in between and how it exactly happened, And they came back, but they all come in with their new elemental forms, different than what they originally looked like. So how Trox switched up, Hydrus, Pharaoh, all of them, how they switched up and had the elemental energy in them, we get why. At first, we didn't know exactly why because it felt like they were just jumping right into the season, but nah. This right here is like basically the 1 and 2 episode and explains everything, like I said before. But Drago took that power from that elemental storm, and it not only changed him, he went back to Vestroya where all of them were hibernating, and he released all that energy in that room where they were all hibernating. So they basically got that energy. It allowed them to come back, and then they came through the gate and returned to Earth to the Awesome Brawlers. But this all happened in a span of 1 minute. But also keep in mind, and Drago said this himself, because like all the other Bakugan showed up, and they're like, "Oh, Trox, what's up?" And then Hydrus, "Oh, rawr, rawr," because Winton being so hype about like Lightning being so hype about Howlcore, and honestly, that was not a bad impression. Like, rawr! I don't think that was bad for Lightning. But yeah, they all show up, and then Dan's just sitting there like, "Man, this is awful," and then Drago's like, "What's the matter, Dad?" "What do you mean, what's the matter? You just disappeared." And Drago, because Drago returned, and then he has his new form. He's like, "You look different." And then he explains how he went to Destroya, released all that elemental energy. It changed him, it changed the other Bakugan, and they all returned back. But time on Destroya is a lot different than time, on Earth. So it could be like years in Destroya and be a little bit of time, not like crazy time on Earth, because it's a lot faster in Destroya. So yeah, it was like a minute, literally like about a minute. Drago was gone, and then he came back, and then that makes sense to why they have their new forms and such. So yeah, they've all got their brand new forms with them, and that's how we get the transition with it. This episode itself explaining everything. The backstory. Well, basically, not quite everything, but a lot of it. So then after this, Dan actually calls up Marlo Faustus, because he introduced himself. They all introduced themselves as, the Elemental Brawlers during that meetup. But he calls up Marlo Faustus and basically says, like, "Oh, we got our Bakugan, and we see what you're doing," because they saw, like, a lot of the energy was coming from, from their academy. Their academy that they had. Well, no, 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 not the academy yet. They saw that like they knew exactly where to go when the elemental storm started up. Like they knew exactly where to go, what to do, and such. And then, like, of course, the Awesome Brothers got suspicious of that, thinking they're kind of evil. They could be doing the same thing that Havoc did, the same thing that, uh, you know, that Gregorius Reed did. They trying to gain big time power and just, like manipulate it and such. The same thing that Tico did. Like kind of those paths. So then Dan calls them up. They all show up. And, Athena just being Athena, talking smack to Dan. And then, well, Dan and the other Awesome Brawlers challenging them to a battle. So they're all sitting there fighting. But then the Elemental Brawlers are whooping them, honestly. Because they know how to use Nanogon and such. And plus, Marlo, right away, he had Wrath. So seeing this, it makes sense because they showed off Wrath with the first episode. And that's why they probably held off on this, because they didn't want to show off Wrath. They didn't want to show off the other teacher's Bakugan, the Arliss Bakugan, and that Nanogon, because they haven't been released yet. Probably going off the release schedule and such. And thinking about the story, they would have revealed a lot, like an F ton with the first episode if they would have put that out first before we saw any of the other episodes. So it makes sense why they pushed it back, even though it's the events, like, basically like a prelude, like a prequel to how this, a prelude, yeah, to how this season started. Maybe they felt like they were like revealing too much with it, and that's why they held off on it and put it out now as episodes like 9 and 10 instead of like right at 1 and 2 at the very beginning of the season. They probably felt like it spoiled too much. But now with this, it makes sense, because now seeing this and seeing the other episodes, I understand things more. Like with the teachers and such, they're all elemental brawlers. That's why they're teachers and such. Powerful brawlers. And now it makes sense how they got their elemental Bakugan. With Drago absorbing the power of that elemental storm. Things are fully coming together, but they didn't want to reveal everything, especially with how things have gone. Even with the last episode they showed with Magnus and Dan. So rather than just jumping right into it, they gave us this as the beginning part, because this is what they wanted to show off, and it makes us understand things that much more going into this next arc, because it's going to be wild. But yeah, so anyways, getting back into it, the Awesome Brawlers versus, like, the Elemental Brawlers. The Elemental Brawlers are whooping them. They beat them all except for Dan and Drago, but then Dan and Drago, basically the last one standing, and Dan had Drago use Twisting Inferno on himself, so that he could like trigger up some elemental energy, and then he used that, and that's how Dan got strength mode. So Dan was the first one to use strength mode out of everybody, like out of Marlo, Faust, out of everybody. He's the first one to actually use strength mode. And Marlo was intrigued by it, but then they start sitting there and battling, that being Blitz Fox and her Nanogon, and then like you got Drago and his Nanogon and such. No, Drago and his Nanogon. This is where they summon their Nanogon at. This is where Dan summoned his Nanogon. Not quite the strength mode yet. I'm getting ahead of myself. Like I said, it's 45 minutes, so there's a lot to go through. But this is where Dan gets Fury. And then, like, they're sitting there facing off Athena and Dan, so right away it established them as, like, rivals and such. But then Faustus told Athena to stop, because Athena's like, oh, you might be able to pull out a Nanogon, but can you control it? And they're sitting there and battling, and then, Marlo Faustus just says stop. And then, Dan pulled back his, he pulled back Fury and Drago and such. And then after this, Marlo actually invited them to the Bakugan Academy. So this is where we get it, like, their tour of the Bakugan Academy. Basically like a tour before you go to college or such, that type of thing, or going to a new school. Like where they have the big time brochure, fairs where they're showing off all the different, like, brochures they have for different colleges and stuff. Well, it's basically this, that they're going on like a tour. It's basically like, you decide what college you want to go to if you go to college, or what school you want to go to, what university, whatever, and then you do the tour. Kind of like that, except just the Bakugan Academy. There's only one academy. So they're going, and Marlo Faustus is showing them around the academy, showing them all the different things. We see, like, the characters that we now know, like the janitor, like different teachers teaching the different classes, even the Sykes teacher, like how Athena was battling the Sykes teacher, but then she has a blindfold on and she's sitting there with the connection with the Bakugan and Brawler, all the things that we understand now because seeing the other episodes, but And they showed off a lot of this stuff, and maybe they just wanted to be like a full surprise thing with the Academy. They felt like they were showing off too much with it with the first and second episodes, like this combined episode, which is why they pushed it back to this point now. Because honestly, if they would have put this out, they probably saw like how intense the battles and such got with this, and they would have thought it would have overshadowed the next few episodes. So probably an executive decision was made, put out all these episodes with them just getting right into the Academy, and then after a few episodes where we know everything that's going on, basically, they put out this one. So we get the answer to the backstory, the big questions we had. They answered that backstory. It's not like a Beyblade thing where like, oh, hey, a character comes in and now explain the backstory. Like they told the backstory with this. I mean, they've done so well with this reboot, and they did so with this. Yeah, dude. So they're showing them around the academy, and then while they're actually sitting there talking with the one teacher, I think Wes or something, his name, the guy with the gold strands of hair and then the gray afro, you know. Um, yeah, while they're sitting there talking to him, a storm happened. So another elemental storm broke out, except this time it's a Bakugan nobody's seen before. They all rush towards it, to where it's at, but this Bakugan, they pay an homage, I swear to God. Like, this is another instance of it, because this Bakugan, it's the darkest Bakugan, and the design of it looks kind of like Garganoid Webum, but, like, not quite. It's its own Bakugan for sure. It's not like a hybrid Bakugan or fusion Bakugan. It's its own Bakugan. And this Bakugan, its design reminds me so damn much of Dragonoid. It looks like Dragonoid, because it's got, like, the big-time monster human top, except he's kind of jacked. He's got the wings and such, but also like he's got the different legs, like on all fours and such. He definitely, like, the design reminds me so much of Dragonoid season 4, Meganium Surge, the original era of Bakugan. Now they have season 4 of this Bakugan looking kind of like Dragonoid. They be paying homage, man, and they're definitely doing so with this Bakugan. We don't know the name of it, but I definitely hope that they make it. Like, I really want them to still make Tico and Gorillion into actual figures. I'm glad that we got a Leonidas. I hope we get Leonidas and other factions besides Arliss. But, like, for real, I hope we get Tico and Gorillion, because they're both really, really epic Bakugan, man. And I just want to be able to actually use them as physical, figures. But this Bakugan now seems like it's going to be one of the higher up evils, I feel like, But, yeah, we don't even know the name of it. We just see the design for the first time with this. So it could be one of the Bakugan that's set to come out with one of the later waves. So they just didn't want to spoil that quite yet. But, it might hint at some of the Bakugan that will be coming later. Like Wrath, the Bakugan that's owned by the Professor, the Arliss Professor, and also this new Bakugan showing up. But this new Bakugan shows up. All the elemental brawlers are trying to fight it, because it's filled with some serious elemental energy. It's got a shield around it, and every time they attack, it takes power. But at first, like, they're like, let us deal with this. Like, the Awesome Brawlers be like, we're the Awesome Brawlers, we can help. And then they're just like, no, you don't go to this university and such, and you can't control this power. And honestly, like, Leah agreed with them, because Dan was the one that was sticking up. But then Leah's like, they're right, Dan. We'd just be getting in the way right now. So they all run off and such. Dan obviously frustrated at that, because he wants to help, because Dan, his big time pride and ego and everything. But yeah, so they're fighting this Bakugan. The Elemental Brawlers are fighting this new Bakugan. I'm gonna call it like Reboot Dragonoid for now, since we don't have an actual name for it. But they're fighting Reboot Dragonoid. Every single attack that they hit Reboot Dragonoid with, it absorbs it. It's like literally absorbing all that power and such, and getting stronger. Its B power is going up with each attack. But Dan realizes that, even walking by, like, like they're sitting by on the sides looking, and he's like, wait, look over there, guys. Every attack, they're gaining power. Like, it's gaining power from it. And then they try to run back and tell them to stop, but they're not listening. They're sitting there attacking it, and then it just gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and then it bodies all of their Bakugan, except for Wrath. Wrath doesn't completely go down, but, he's definitely in a weak state and such. So yeah, they couldn't stop it. But afterwards, the Awesome Brawlers tried to figure out what they could do to stop it, because that Bakugan was going straight for another elemental storm that was by a power plant. big time nuclear power plant, using that energy, he'd have so much energy that he'd be able to go and all hell would break loose and the city would be in danger, the world could be in danger from that overflow of power, big time threat. This itself is like a big major buildup. This feels like a movie, like an actual movie, not just the start of like the beginning of the season. It feels like an actual like Bakugan reboot movie kind of with this, which is cool. They started off the season with that, but holding off on it because they felt like they were going to put out a lot. So it's kind of cool. Maybe this is the closest thing we'll get to an actual like Bakugan movie for the reboot. Hopefully not. It'll be cool if they do have an actual movie or such that they put out. Just saying, an exclusive Bakugan or such. But it has all those vibes. This build up, this story, this exclusive Bakugan right now reboot Dragonoid, going crazy with power. Overall, really cool story so far. And this transition, like the true transition from the past seasons into this one, it's sick. But I get why they didn't put it out at the beginning, like I said, because they didn't want to spoil everything before we saw the other episodes. So they put out a bunch of other episodes up until like 10. And then we got this, they put out the first 8 episodes, and then we got the actual first episodes with this. But then reboot Dragonoid going towards this big time elemental storm by the power plant. The Awesome Brawlers trying to stop it. So they just all launch out their Bakugan, and Faustus and the others, they tried to step in and stop it, but they couldn't stop it by themselves. And then Dan realized like he was being stubborn and that we need the help of the Elemental Brawlers too. And they actually work together with this pretty well, because Faustus did say they kind of have the same goals and same ideas and everything. But then Dan called for the help of the Elemental Brawlers, and then we get this big time brawl, and Faustus basically said like you were all right, Dan. Like we were wrong. We shouldn't have attacked it directly, and because of that, we have a giant mess on our hands. But what we could do is Drago absorbed all the power. This man's really analytical too, and this is why even after seeing all these episodes, I don't know about Marlo Faustus. But he's like, Drago absorbed the energy of the elemental storm that was around Studio D, right? Maybe he could do it now. And so, he like sends out this huge amount of power, and it's like from like elemental storms and stuff, a bunch of elemental power, and Drago absorbs it. And once Drago absorbs that power, then we get Dragonoid Evolution Strength Mode. So, Dan was the first one to actually use Strength Mode. Because we saw, like you saw before, Athena, like when they actually went to the academy afterwards and such, talking about these events. Well, now we're seeing these events unfold firsthand. With Strength Mode, Drago had enough power to take out this Bakugan. And, with all that power, they managed to stop it. There was many times before they tried to stop it. They even tried to bury it under rubble, and then like use Twisting Inferno to melt it in and trap it. But then it broke out. But then Dan got all that power and such, and made Strength Mode. With Strength Mode, Dan was able to defeat the Bakugan and stop it. And like Faustus and the Elemental Brawlers showed up afterwards. And Faustus said, like, well done. Maybe you would consider coming to our Bakugan Academy. And this is where he put in the actual invitation for them to go to the Bakugan Academy. And he said, like, oh, you did a good job. And then Athena's like, well, it's only because of Mr. Faustus's help. And then he's just like, Athena, come on now. But then, after the invitation, sorry, I had to sneeze. But after the invitation, Dan said, we'll think about it. And then, the Awesome Brawlers walked off and such. And then, basically like a cutscene afterwards with Faustus. With Faustus and Wrath. Now, I fully understand. Like I said, they threw a lot of damn information at us with this. This would have been the first 2 episodes. It honestly would have overshadowed the other ones, like I said, because how intense the battles got. Like, there's been intense battles with this entire season, but how much they threw at us with this, with the first episodes, like even with the transition and everything, they threw even more info at us with this than they did with the first episode. You know, like we jumped right into the academy and everything. They were teaching about elemental energy, nanogon, everything. For the first couple episodes, they showed even more with this, and this was the actual first couple episodes that were supposed to go out. So it definitely felt like to me after seeing this, they felt like they put out way too much of that first episode, and they're like, we gotta hold off on this. This won't be the true first episode. We're gonna release these episodes, like this joint episode, later on, because the whole build up with the academy and such, all the new, like, you know, if you would have thought about this whole entire brawl and stuff, if they would have put this out first, this would have overshadowed everything, even the storytelling with the academy and everything. So I think it was a smart decision. You know, them putting out the build up with the academy and then like strength mode, speed mode, them getting all these different modes, and then putting this out because there's still some background things with this. They showed off Wrath, they showed off this reboot Dragonoid, you know, that showed up, and it's definitely not the last time we've seen that. Especially with like this elemental asylum that they were talking about with these few episodes that they showed us. I can imagine like this reboot Dragonoid maybe being a secret part of that elemental asylum because it took so damn much to take that thing down. It deflected a lot of elemental energy, and maybe it'll just get improved over time. Who knows? Maybe that could be the secret big bad of this season, possibly. But yeah, it makes full sense why they held off on this. And I'm just gonna call this like episodes 9 and 10, you know, but I'll say like real episodes 1 and 2 with a question mark in the front, like you know. I'll figure out a title for this, but you know, considering they put this out as like episodes 9 and 10, considering the order they put them out, this is basically 9 and 10, but it's 1 and 2, but they released in the 9 and 10 spot because there's so much that just happened with this, and they didn't want to spoil a lot, which is why we got this. But to cap off this episode, we had something big, and this is why I genuinely feel like they really held off on this. Faustus and Wrath had a dialogue, so they haven't shown Wrath talking at all with any of these episodes. They showed Wrath recently with some of the newer episodes. But he actually had a dialogue with Marlo Faustus. And with this, I am immediately like, because Wrath talks to Faustus like, are you sure it was a good thing to let the brawlers know? Like, in on some secrets and such. And, you know, Faustus was like, you saw it, didn't you? The potential they had. They managed to control elemental energy, and they're some of the only ones that can right now. And then Wrath says, don't play snippy with me, human. And the voice of Wrath, considering the name 1 is Wrath, but the voice 2, especially hearing it now, is giving me Villock vibes. This whole thing right now is giving me Villock vibes. Like maybe Wrath is using Faustus or something. But they're just partners for now. You know? Kind of like a whole Gregorius Reed Villock type thing, except it's the beginning and he's actually using Villock, you know? Those are the vibes that I'm getting with this, for sure. And considering, like, even after he picked up the Bakugan, because after Reboot Dragonoid got beat, Faustus picked it up and said he was going to do research on it. Like, we're going to put all our resources from the Bakugan Academy into figuring this out and do an investigation. Then he looked down and just smiled, like, the same kind of smile that made me sus at him before, and I'm even more sus. I'm damn convinced that this man is probably one of the big bads of the season. And even seeing this episode made me feel that much further, considering how the dialogue is with him and Wrath, how Wrath is treating him. He's got like a Gregorius Reed type of approach right here. Except instead of being a big-time rich billionaire and such that can use money for anything, he's a world-renowned researcher and such that has a lot of knowledge on stuff. But then he also has a Bakugan that just calls him human. And also, thinking about it, each season we have a different attributed evil, right? For the main evil. Because we had Tico having like being Arliss, but having like kind of darkest influence or such. Well, the Levi's, you know, but the ultimate evil being Arliss. With the second season, with Sabra Pyravian, you know, Havoc's Sabra Pyravian had Arliss influence, but the main evil was Darkus. The third season, we had Gregorius Reed and Villock. And then that being like it was fully R-less with that, like just full R-less power with that, but also including the other power of other factions, you know. And every season, R-less has played a little part in the evil, you know, like with Tico, R-less, Saber Pyravian, R-less influence, you know, with the Darkest. Third season, Villock, completely R-less, except the influence of like the other factions because of the different Geogon that was combined with it. And now this season, but I'm thinking like maybe it is Wrath that's the big time evil. But like it'll be cool because we haven't had a Chaos evil with this series yet. You know, we haven't had a full Chaos evil in Wrath. The name's Wrath. How he's treating Gregorius Reed behind the scenes, and this was the beginning. This is why they didn't want to put it out because even after this episode, Wrath hasn't talked. So the Awesome Brothers don't even know that Wrath can talk. You know, they've just seen Wrath a couple times. I'm including with this, but yeah. So it's a lot of stuff, man, and especially like Magnus in the latest episode saying there's a secret behind this academy. Don't let your guard down, and tell him that to Dan. And then he left the academy, but then Marlowe Faust is sitting there watching the silhouette of him. You know, you can see the silhouette of him, but he's sitting there watching, and then you see a cufflink on him that's gold. Which I'm thinking there's some R-less influence with this, man. Yeah, and especially like Wrath having kind of the same voice as Villock. Come on, man. There's some deep down stuff with this. And even more after this, I do not trust Marlowe Faustus. He is the one out of everybody that I don't trust that much. Like, honestly, with the whole academy, I don't see them being real evil. Maybe just like some of the higher ups. Maybe it's like, I hope not. Because I hope some of the teachers are really chill. Because, like, considering how cool the teachers are, they're all really chill and relaxed. But also, you never know, man. They could pull an Aether Foundation type thing with this. And you know what I mean with the Aether Foundation. Anybody who's played Sun or Moon, how originally it was thought they were like a good group, but then they ended up being evil, and then Lusamine going bat, and then combining with frickin' Nihilego and becoming like Squidward tentacles, Lusamine, and trying to destroy like Lillian, all that and such. I'm going into Pokemon stuff with this, but this is just a full reference with it, you know? Like same sort of thing. It could be good on the outskirts, but then like the way higher ups are the corrupt ones. Like everybody else could be chill with this, like naturally getting stronger. But Marlowe Faustus has been sitting in the background watching all of this, and this just shows the first beginning part of this. He's had this like reboot Dragonoid for investigation since the very beginning. We could see it return, especially if Marlowe Faustus is actually evil or such. Maybe he uses some power, like elemental power and such, and manipulates it to make it that much stronger. Like that, as well as Wrath, those are two very powerful Bakugan for sure. And his demeanor and everything, I don't trust him. Sure as hell not. Especially after seeing this, like even this first episode and how his demeanor was even then. Ah. And especially after seeing how Wrath was treating him with the end of this, man. I think Faustus is being used, and they talked about separating Earth and Vestroia, that being Wagner of the Gate Crushers. Talked about separating Earth and Vestroia, so it could be like Marlowe Faustus, Wagner, now him having to reboot Dragonoid, now us knowing he has to reboot Dragonoid for investigation, but not forgetting that, man. That could be a big detail, especially if it comes back. Him having Wrath, like there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes, like the Elemental Asylum. You might know about it and such. We're going to see some more details with the Elemental Asylum because they kept it hush-hush for now. They mentioned it a couple times, but more and more, especially seeing the corruption at the top levels of this academy. A lot's going on. So, yeah, overall, my thoughts on it, this was absolutely epic, man. Like, honestly, like, just this being the first, supposed to be first 2 episodes to go out with this series, holy hell. They dropped a lot. I thought they dropped a lot with just the beginning of, like, how they brought in the things with this season. But this was supposed to be the first and second episodes? It makes full sense why they dropped them as like 9 and 10 and dropped the other episodes first before they dropped this, because they revealed a lot even with this. This itself expands the plot, and that stuff was supposed to be the first and second episode, but then they definitely made an executive decision to not do that. Like, we're not going to put these out yet because there's a lot with this, and it would probably overshadow everything else. And I thought it was smart. So now getting this and truly knowing how the transition went, on top of all the events that have happened so far, and now seeing how Marlo Faust is becoming kind of Mr. Sketchface, yeah, that fully sets the tone going forward. So yeah, I'd say like what, 11 and 12, like 11 will be the next episode after this. I'm gonna still call this episode 9 and 10, just because we got them as like 9 and 10 to fill that slot, even though it was 1 and 2. Like it feels like this was the true 1 and 2, but then they use this more as a flashback, so we understand all those events, and it makes us think about all those episodes going forward after that, which is kind of cool, and getting us ready for like the next arc of this, because it's wild, man. But yeah, and I think some of the episodes, more of them are dropping, so I can't wait to see how things pan out with this. I am very, very hype. Yeah, just this whole build up, even with like getting this prequel to all the events leading into this season, like that transition and such. And then even just some of the big time battles that have happened lately, like with Magnus and Dan mastering speed mode finally. A lot of stuff going down here. I can't wait to see how this is going to go. But like I said, I completely understand why they held off on this episode. It was a crazy thing, like just waking up and seeing that. I'm like, what the hell? But it makes full sense now, just going through and seeing the episode and everything, because they revealed a lot with this stuff we didn't even know before, getting into the actual first episodes. They put out a lot there, so they definitely were just like, we're gonna save this for a bit after we get this whole transition into the academy, and then put this in there so we get the backstory, and then people putting more pieces together. It's like putting pieces together on a puzzle. Kind of the same sort of thing I'm doing with my skits, man, for Beyblade. Hell yeah. Love it. But yeah, anyways, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments. I know it's a longer episode, but considering it was 44 minutes, 45 minutes, the combined 2 episodes were. Basically, you think about it, 1, 2, we got basically like the events of 4 episodes in this. And sure enough, they put out a lot. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm definitely digging it for sure, and I can't wait to see how crap's going to hit the wall, like how crap's going to hit the fan. It's going to be sick, man. This build-up's been awesome, and I can't wait to see the Bakugan they're going to drop. Like Wrath, like this reboot Dragonoid, like, like the Bakugan that the Artless teacher has. I hope they're part of like the next waves, and I hope they don't leave any of them out, man, because I just really want to see them actually get made. And Tico and Gorillion would be amazing too. They made Tico and Gorillion, like they made basically all the Bakugan that need to be made, except for like Artulian. That's one. I don't know if we'll get it, but if they actually make a figure for it, that'll be amazing. And even Apollyon by itself, but also that, not sure if that'll happen. I really want Tico and Gorillion. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. Again, let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed, be sure to slice that like button down below. Let me know how I did. If you're new to my channel, definitely be sure to subscribe for some epic content, because I upload daily. And if you haven't already, be sure to ring that bell by my channel name to be notified whenever I upload a video. So yeah, guys, till next time, it is your boy Kimbo signing off. See you guys later. Thanks so much for watching. Till then, stay awesome and Bakugan Brawl. I'm up out of here.